Real talk.
Welcome back, everyone. Medyo minute na talaga usapan. So we talked about communist insurgencies, we talked about peace process, etc. But as far as questions of war and peace and communism is concerned, I think kailangan natin pag-usapan ng West Philippine Sea and China, no?
Yes.
Yusek Malaya, many people are super happy about some of the things you have been saying. You know, they're happy about many things about you, but one of the things that makes many people very happy is etong process of exposure. Now, I did a crisis management sa Philippine PR Congress. PR Congress. National Congress. And I cited you and Jay Tariela, Commodore, as the good cases of crisis management. Because in the crisis management, sabi ko, may care yan dapat, may consistency, my sense of accelerated messaging kung mabilis. Pero you have to also make sure responsible how you do it. But the E is exposure. Yes. You have to expose kung may mga dodginess happening here. So we're not against criticism of the government. We're not against you not, agreeing with the government stance. I was not in agreement with the previous president on certain issues. I'm more agreement with this president on certain issues. That doesn't make...
I noticed that.
Yeah, you should know that. So speaking of that, you recently discussed something that we in the think tank world, in the journalistic world have been talking about, which is this concept of sharp power. No?
Yes.
Sharp power is different because, soft power is the power of your culture, BTS, Hollywood.
Yes.
And then hard power, of course, is your military force, your economic, industrial power. But sharp power is when authoritarian superpowers weaponize freedoms in rival nations or victim nations to push for their own agenda. Essentially, they use our freedoms expressions to push for an outcome which is very much against what our system stands for. So over the past year, I had the pleasure to talk to a lot of people from our government, including Ambassador Babe Romualdez, who gave his stance about where the Philippines should stand when it comes to defense of our freedom. But I felt you're the perfect person to talk about this because a common, friend of ours, si Commodore Jay Tariela, made some waves earlier this year.
He's of the Coast Guard, so he really makes waves.
Yes. Literally. Philippine Navy will have something to say about that. Essentially, may palakihan sila ng waves. Commodore Tariela, said something like, this is not about sinong sinuportahan mo, sinong political party mo, etc. Pero kung Pilipino ka naman, sana naman hindi yung consistent yung kabila lang ina-argue mo. Medyo iba na yata yan. So, Yusek, for the purpose of our audience, can you explain to us what is this sharp power influence operations, some of these concerns that you have raised recently? And kudos to you, hindi ka ba natakot na magkakaroon ng backlash against you? Nasabihin nila, ano ka, can we talk about that?
Well, unang-una, thank you for explaining the concept of sharp power. Pero sa amin sa NSC, we call it cognitive warfare.
Yes.
Because it's the battle of the mind. No, so
one of the three warfares of certain power.
That's right. That's right. And for a democracy, you need public support. And not only even authoritarian societies also need public support. No, but there it's controlled. So tayo naman, since we're democracy, public support is more critical. So we noticed this during our standoff with China, that there is a ongoing cognitive warfare operations by Chinese operators in the Philippines, no? Trying to undermine our position, trying to put cracks in the social fabric of the Philippines through the use of cognitive warfare. Meaning, we discussed this extensively in the national security policy that was recently issued by the president.
Right.
Socio-cultural cohesiveness is important. So the objective of the Chinese operators is to put cracks into the social fabric so that the government loses support and our position insofar as the West Philippines is undermined.
So how is it? Is it by spreading disinformation? Yung isang araw, yung isa food blogger, the next thing you know, on-clause expert na pala siya, diba? Expert na siya sa Ukraine suddenly, overnight, biglang expert na siya sa arbitration award. Is this just about spreading disinformation? Or is this something else? Infiltration of the government, co-opting thought leaders, media? What are we talking about here? What are the tentacles here? What kind of octopus are we talking about here?
Well, it utilizes social media influencers, for example. Yes. It utilizes public figures to parrot the Chinese narrative. Okay. So we saw this, for example, in action when we had this disagreement with China over the so-called gentleman's agreement. No? Whether there was this promise, whether there was this promise that BRP Sierra Madre is going to be removed. And we all know, no, that no matter what kind of agreement was made in a conversation with Chinese diplomats or Chinese officials, if it's not on paper, it is not binding. Because in diplomacy, as we all know, conversations cannot be considered as binding. It is the final statement of both parties that are binding. So in this case, nagkagulo nga ang Pilipinas noon eh. That's why I came out on the media. Sabi ko, let's not fall into the Chinese trap. No, this who did it? No, this finger pointing is part of the Chinese approach. No, the Chinese narrative.
I mean, victim blaming in effect. Like, hindi kayong may kasalanan magulo dito kasi nangako kayo na tanggalin yung si Sierra Madre. Kayo may kasalanan. I mean, it's constantly that, right? Gaslighting. Strategic gaslighting. This is happening because the Philippines is doing this. This is happening because you brought in the Americans.
And conveniently forgetting na yung mga pangako nila, nakalimutan nila. For example, China has repeatedly said that they will not militarize the South China Sea. Many times, no, in formal declarations or in statements made in the White House in meetings with the United States, they have repeatedly said, we will not militarize, we will not reclaim. Look at what happened now. Diba? Mischief-free, many of the installations in China, kaya sometimes we're surprised. But ang dami, no? But ang daming barko, but ang daming Chinese Coast Guard vessels because Mischief is a naval base of China. Fiery Cross has also been militarized. So they have forward operating bases right in our doorstep already. Okay? So that's why I sounded the alarm. Sabi ko, parang pangit na ito nangyayari sa atin. Eh? Kasi nagre-react na lahat, mga senador. Sabi ko, we're falling into their trap. And we have to be conscious of this so that we make the right and informed decisions.
Yusek Malaya, how is this different? I mean, again, I don't want to put you on the spot because you also work in the previous administration, but the previous president, who made a visit also to China recently, the kind of positions he takes on the West Philippine Sea doesn't seem to be, for some, too different from some people are being accused of doing. Just to be clear, I'm not saying that the previous president is X, Y, and Z. I'm just saying that paano naman yung mga nagsasabi na, wait lang, this is just, we believe in the previous president, how he stands on the West Philippine Sea issue. It doesn't mean that we're pro-China. It doesn't mean we are propagandists, etc. Because even the previous president was saying, if America is here, this is a threat to us. The previous president was saying, kasalanan natin. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Now some people are wondering, this is a legitimate partisan disagreement, right?
Yes.
I'm with Digong. I agree with the Digong worldview. That doesn't mean I'm a China propagandist. So how do we distinguish between yung talagang mukhang may ginagawang kakaiba, diba? May niluluto talaga, versus some who are taking a partisan position because they love the previous president, they believe the previous president had the right position in China. I know it sounds weird coming from me, but I want to be fair, right? I want to be fair.
Yes.
Because the previous president has all the right to take a divergent position on foreign policy.
But you're right, it sounds weird coming from you.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, okay.
But you get what I'm saying, right? Because I think this has to be fleshed out. Kasi yun na nakikita ko whenever we raise the point, sharp powers and all, hindi, yun ang sinabi ni Digong. So bakit? Propagandist na ako automatic. Di ikaw, pro-America ka, ganun. Diba?
That's why this is the only time I sounded the alarm.
Yun nga eh.
Before, you would have no way of knowing. Because we're a democracy.
Right.
Diba? But when I saw, kasi, ditong agreement na ito.
Interesting. Good
Diba?
point.
Yeah,
Good point.
yeah,
Very good point.
The Chinese narrative of agreement came from China itself.
Pwede po for the people na hindi familiar doon sa ano po ba yung sa agreement? Ano yung kasama doon?
Yung sa Sierra Madre
Yeah,
na
sa Sierra Madre, because ang sabi ng China, pinadaan namin yung mga supply ships nyo to resupply BRP Sierra Madre precisely because there was an agreement in the past na tatanggalin nyo yan.
Eventually, tatanggalin
nyo yan. So, tanggalin nyo na yan. Kasi kung hindi, papahirapan namin kayo. Parang that was the message. So,
yung excuse nila.
Yun yung excuse nila. And when people started parroting that line, no? Which is not, if to be perfectly honest, not Digong's line. No? Yun, when people started
distinguishing
that's when I distinguish. Sabi ko, this is the Beijing playbook already.
Right.
This is the Chinese narrative. And doon nagkagulo na yung buong Pilipinas and there were there were already calls in Congress to call for congressional investigation. Sabi ko, this is exactly what China wants to happen. Na tayo nagtuturuan. Someone was a traitor, someone promised China, and tayo
Dissonance,
tayo ngayon yung nagkakagulo. And that is exactly what cognitive warfare is.
Nation.
A divided nation. When in fact, this is an issue that should unite us, not divide us.
Correct.
Kaya nag-iba yung tingin ko dun sa mga, especially when the people in the Pandesal Forum, let's call them that. Well, anyway.
Ay, wala akong
naman binulong mo sa akin bago tayo.
Sasabihin ko sana yung mga binibake.
Real talk.
Wala man lang warm up.
For the record, si Richard po ang nagsabi sa akin dyan.
Real talk tayo dito. Real talk tayo. So,
on the record, tawagin ko yung mga abogado ko. I deny that. No, I mean, okay, let's talk about this. Since you brought out the genie, right?
Yeah.
So some people are saying, some friends of ours in the journalist world, like, I mean, they're saying, well, legit naman. I mean, some people who are close to me, like some of my mentors, they give talks sa yung Pandesal Forum na yan, and they legitimately criticize NATO or the US imperialism, etc.
No problem.
Yeah, no problem. So where is the problem then? So how do we distinguish it when, again, legitimate, critical, leftist, progressive?
Again, it's weird coming from you.
I'm a good host. Yeah.
This was the game changer for me. No? When the Chinese deputy chief of mission joined the Pandesal Forum. That was it. Sabi ko,
this is during the Ayungin one, diba?
Sabi ko, this exposes, kasi, di ba, if you're supposed to be a news forum that's as independent and you're talking about policies that affect the Philippines and you are just being there because of you love your country, why would you allow the deputy chief of mission of Chinese embassy to join you in your forum? And then immediately after he leaves, you continue with the narrative mentioned by the deputy chief of mission. So doon ako
sasabihin ni kaibigan na si Wilson na, well, I also invite Lacson before, I also invite Lenny before. What do we have to say into that argument? Or we're saying, ticking the box lang yan. That actually, once in a while you bring, but most of the time, ang host...
Ano bang posisyon ni Lacson sa ni Lenny sa di ba? We're talking about a dispute between the Philippines and China.
Have they invited you ever to their forum? Would you be okay to attend their forum or something?
They did. I did not reply.
Then maybe di na sasabihin nila. Hindi na kasi nag-yes Di sana kayo, bardagulang kayo doon. Kasi di ba dati si Cardemas at saka yung taga... di ba yung Makabayan Block?
I think yun yung isang magandang distinction Kapag parang tipong nag-aabogado na sila,
yes.
For the other side. Consistently. Kasi I always hear this academic argument being used. Why, scholars, we have to be objective. Kasi biglang yung iba may think tank na, yung iba biglang specialist on Eurasian BRICS affairs. Yung mga ganun. Like, wow, sorry Ako naman, of course, if you look at my scholarly, I mean, you have seen in my books, I will criticize, sa totoo lang, Pilipinas yung nauna mag-reclaim. I mean, yung ginawa natin sa Pag-asa, di ba? We were ahead of everyone else. We were the big boy in the 60s and 70s. So I will write that as a scholar.
Just for the runway.
For the scholar.
Exactly. Because if we didn't reclaim, we wouldn't have a runway.
Yeah, exactly.
There.
So my point is, as a scholar, you will say different sides. But even as a scholar, I will not consistently argue the side of yung kalaban ng Pilipinas or, you know what I'm saying? Even as a scholar, you'll say on one hand, on the other hand, I will say, maybe I lean a little bit more to the argument of, let's say, Philippines over Malaysia or Malaysia over Vietnam. Pero what we're seeing is that some people are using the academic argument, but it's really not leaning, it's not this walang balance.
That's right.
It's consistently like that. So it kind of sounds different na to me.
Yeah, one of the mainstays in the Pandesal Forum even came out on TV, was interviewed, and was saying that the water cannoning was a non-lethal. It was a non-lethal.
Kasi hindi namatay.
Kasi walang namatay at tubig lang. But di ba nakita naman natin gaano kalaki yung Chinese warship that's a Philippine Coast that's a Chinese Coast Guard vessel compared to the supply ships na napakaliit. Napakaliit yung supply ships natin. Kaya natatawa nga ako kasi they were saying na substantial construction materials were being brought. Sabi ko, gaano ba kadami yung pwede mo isakay dyan sa maliliit na unay sa main, unay sa na yan? Di ba? So, if you continue to parrot this line consistently...
Is there a script you're detecting? There's a script, right?
There's a script, there's a narrative. And even before Beijing, makes a statement, nauna na sila. For example, itong corals. Di ba? Recently, we released photos, videos of the environmental impact in Sabina Shoal and Escoda Shoal. Right? Yung dalawang shoals na yun. Walang response on China. Global Times, there was an article but it quoted an expert. Ang sabi ng expert na
si Song ba yan or something yata? I think I know that guy.
China is a responsible country, blah, blah, blah. But there was no complete denial. The denial came from one of the mainstays in the Pandesal Forum. Ang sabi niya, China cannot be responsible. There's no proof that China did it. Sabi ko nga.
Alam na alam yung on the ground.
Yeah.
August, September, dalawa yun, di ba? One was like 30 plus.
Yes, 30
another
plus.
one was around 13, 14. Yeah, right?
Yes, 13,
dalawa
14.
yun, di ba? Yeah,
Dalawang shoals yun.
Yeah.
So, yung spokesman nila, wala sa Beijing. Ang spokesman nila, nandito sa Pilipinas. And that is cognitive warfare.
And
matanong ko lang, meron bang moves na like ginagawa yung sa government natin to, ewan ko, paano ba pwede mong gawin for the people na parang nandun sa side nung ibang bansa?
Like Admiral said, could there be money trail? Is there should be update ba sa espionage law?
May laws ba against that? Yun ang, pero medyo
Ito kasi yung problema.
Freedom of speech nila.
Ang problema kasi natin, wala tayong Foreign Interference Act.
Yun nga yeah.
Many countries in the world,
Taiwan, Australia,
they have a Foreign Interference Act. Meaning, if you are paid by a foreign government, you have to register.
Foreign agent
ka. So you have to register to the Department of Justice para alam ng lahat. No? It's more of a transparency. Kasi right now, they're portraying themselves as independent think tanks or academicians who are not, taking aside. It's more of academic than anything else.
Or claiming to correct the misinformation from the government.
Something
or pro-American boys. American colony patriots.
May hugot ka, Richard.
Ayoko lang sa mga province of China. Ayoko lang sa province of China patriots. No, you're right. Again, we're not here into like this kind of a communist scare game. No? What we're saying, actually in other countries, for instance,
it's illegal.
You're working with the Indian government promotion agencies. You're registered as a foreign agent. Transparent ka. Hindi ka makukulong for that. You're just transparent.
That's right. That's the purpose of the law.
Alam din nila that if you defend na, baka kasi he work. Pero is there, meron naman nag-submit niyan sa batas? Is anyone pushing for it?
Wala pa nga
Wala pa.
And kami, I've heard the National Security Advisor Ed Año mention that to us. So we're now preparing draft bill which we will submit to Congress para maipasa
so you're gonna put kasi itong foreign relations, I mean, they're already very good templates from very good democracies, right?
Yes.
Andyan na yung Australian and Taiwan.
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, yung new anti-terrorism law na pinasa natin, a lot of that is also inspiration from Australia, di ba?
Yes.
So we already have a precedence whereby our national security legislations draws from mature democracies to ensure hindi ma-undermine yung democracies and all. And this is where, of course, it gets interesting. I'm sure a lot of people who were not very happy about the anti-terror law may actually be happy about this one because they feel ito ibang usapan na to kasi an authoritarian superpowers is, allegedly, gaming the system here.
Yes, but yung batas natin will be agnostic, country agnostic.
Meaning, of course.
This is not for China per se.
Yeah.
No?
Any country.
Yes. If you are an agent of the United States, you getting payment from the United States to lobby for a law or lobby for public policy, magpaparegister ka lang. Ganun lang gagawin mo.
Professionalized.
And I think that's important because kailangan maintindihan natin yung mga people who make positions known to the public should be exposed for what they are. Yun lang naman ang hinihingi natin. Para people can make the right decisions, informed decisions.
Ang napansin ko din, Yusek, throughout this whole, yung mga ginagawang style ng China and all that, pero it's still difficult for them na to get through to the masa ng Pilipino. Parang napakahirap, parang ang baba pa rin ng tiwala ng mga ordinaryong
sa China?
Sa China.
3% na lang yata sila. Sila yung 3%
Ako, as a vlogger, kwento ko lang din. Maski nung time ni President Duterte, every issue, napapansin ko, nananalo si President Duterte. Walang, kumbaga, di ba?
Except ito, medyo sa West Philippine Sea.
Pagdating sa West Philippine Sea, pag medyo parang most Filipinos talaga are medyo wala talagang tiwala. Siguro dahil din sa nangyayari nga sa West Philippine Sea, siguro yung matagal nating relationship with the US, naisip ko baka factor din, lahat tayo may kamag-anak nakatira sa Amerika. So,
mahilig sa basketball.
mas may tiwala siguro tayo doon. Pero yun nga, parang kahit anong trabahong gawin nila, it's still hard for them to penetrate and paniwalain yung mga Pilipino doon sa mga narrative na pinupush nila.
Kaya wala silang ginawa kundi sabihin, kayo, tuta kayo ng Amerika, yung mga ganyan na lang na arguments, which is pathetic. Yeah.
Mali rin kasi yung approach nila. The way they are, I don't know, the way that their statements are phrased, the way, mali it hits us very,
Sablay talaga.
For example, yung sa over Taiwan, di ba? They were warning us not to get involved with Taiwan because you're putting at risk your 150,000. Parang it was like a veiled threat eh.
Parang mafia, diba? I heard you have a nice community down there. Would be a sad thing or something. Alam mo yung mga ganun na movies na pangit eh. Pangit talaga. Sablay talaga eh. But going back to so again, I mean, for me, I'll just be honest again. It might sound weird to you coming from me, but no, that's the reason why in the first year of Digong, I actually had reasonable relationship with some people because I also believe na pagdating sa foreign policy, tama naman si Mark na may prejudice talaga against China. In the same way na sa US, medyo may pagka-unearned affection sila sometimes. Because, I mean, you and I, Jonathan, knows, maraming time na nagkakulang talaga ng Amerika sa atin. I don't think they have been this amazing ally that we thought they are. Now, things are improving now. We can see in the past 6 years and guess what? Ironically, maybe Digong should be also partly credited for that, right? For shaking up the system. I guess. See, I'm fair, di ba?
Yes.
See, I'm very fair. You say Malaya. So, siguro sometimes, for me naman, people like Mr. Wilson Flores, no? Kaibigan natin sa media. Siguro, the argument would be, we're here naman to push back against some of the prejudice against Chinese people. And let's be honest, Jonathan, I mean, I'm not going to name names. As a fellow columnist of mine before an Inquirer said something about, na medyo prejudicial sa mga Chinoy community, etc. Diba? So, we do have a problem, of racism against the Chinese community here in the Philippines and medyo too much respect for America. Perhaps.
But compared to other countries, mahina tayo. Because if you look at the history of, for example, Indonesia, there are riots there in the past.
Yes,
anti-Chinese riots.
Race riots
there, And in Malaysia, there's racial tensions in Malaysia, right? We all know that.
Baka kasi mas malaki yung percentage ba ng population nila na Chinese?
That's right. Mas malaki.
20% sa Malaysia.
Tayo yung pinakamaliit actually.
2% lang yata.
Maliit sa atin, around
1.5-2%. 1.5.
Puro mga negosyante pa lahat. So mga boss natin.
Chinoy, maraming Chinoy, halo-halo na.
So I don't think dito sa Pilipinas, we have a racial prejudice again. I don't really feel it.
You don't buy it.
I don't buy it.
I mean, it is, but it's isolated.
It's not the racial discrimination that is present in Indonesia or Malaysia or other Southeast Asian countries. It's more of parang iba lang sa totem pole, diba? It's mas magaling yung Amerika, ito kasi made in China ng mga gamit, stuff like that. It's more of like that.
Hollywood
not a prejudice. Not a prejudice.
It's not a violent, racist kind of exclusionary idea.
Yes, it's not exclusionary.
That's what makes me proud of us being Pinoy, yung pagka-cosmopolitan natin.
Yes, and we're open.
Exactly.
We're
very open.
They're much more integrated in the Philippines, the Chinese community, than in other countries in Southeast Asia.
Speaking of, may gusto din akong itanong eh. Ito medyo medyo internal naman. Pero about sa mga Chinese pa rin yung sa pagtrato nating mga Pinoy. Kasi lalo na yung pagpasok ng mga pogo at ngayon nasa issue na naman siya. Tapos I always hear, parati ko naririnig minsan na parang pagdating sa security ng national or baka meron nakakapasok na pailan-ilan dyan. Now, we're not saying na not all pogos are bad. Marami naman dyan maayos na negosyo pero may pailan-ilan baka nakakapasok yung mga unwanted or mga hindi natin gusto
yun nga, are we monitoring them well? Tama si Mark. Kasi the former National Security Advisor during the panahon ni Digong, he openly said, I mean, former General Esperon, di ba? Parang may sinabi siya something like, marami po ang paso, hindi namin alam talagang ginagawa nila. Senator Lacson openly said some of them could be PLA agents. And Secretary Lorenzana, I remember very well, who I interviewed multiple times, he said, maybe kailangan ng silos na yung mga iba dyan para lang we kasi ang dami sa kanya malapit sa mga military camps. Pansin ko. You know what I'm saying? I did a lot of reports on this issue. So, again, we're not here to cast, a whole net. But we have to be also careful about what's happening in our country, di ba? I mean, kasi meron tayong territorial dispute, which is a serious thing. It shouldn't be the entirety of our relationship, but it's a serious thing. So
I agree.
So you say, are you doing something about this? No, parang balance against racial prejudice and profiling, but at the same time, making sure hindi tayo basta-basta na, I mean, we're an open country, pero sana hindi masyadong open, right? Na pwede tayo abusuin from inside.
Yes, we are monitoring them.
Yeah.
We are monitoring them. In fact, we're trying to monitor the entire archipelago now. Yung mga pumapasok na mga barko and all. Pero yung sa Pogo kasi, malaki na yung kabawasan sa kanila.
Oo nga eh. After pandemic, marami nag-alinsan eh.
Ang dami na nagsara. Ang dami na, So this is much, much smaller than the numbers before.
100,000 yata umabot na.
And the income we're getting is not the same. So it's not that much of a security threat as it was before.
Right.
I would admit during the height of the pandemic kasi ang dami-dami talaga nila dito. But after the pandemic, nag-alisa, nagbalikan na sila.
Ayan na.
Kasi naman, kahit hindi sa foreign threat, maski sa crime eh. Maski sa
kidnapping, yung harap-harapan sa mga
sila. Diba sila eh.
Sila.
So, may epekto din
may
talaga.
May namatay pa na may ID pa yata.
So, iba pa yung
mga ganun.
Pero, tingin nyo as it stands now, yan yung mga worries lang naman ng mga ibang Pinoy na that might be used for, yun nga, yung mga external na gustong mag-impluensya dito. So,
yes, we are monitoring them. It's part of our job through the NICA and through the other intelligence agencies of government. Minomonitor natin yan. But it is not much as a threat as it was. Pero nasa balita na naman kasi because a Senate resolution was passed, I think on the committee level, na palisin na yung mga pogo sa ating bansa. So it's back in the headlines, but the numbers are much smaller compared to in the past.
And lastly, do you have a message dito sa West Philippines? I mean, of course, sa isang demokrasya, it's normal for us to have this. You and I, I'm sure we have areas where we agree and areas that we may not agree 100%, but that should never prevent us from engaging with each other. I mean, that's a democracy, right? So we're not here speaking against diversity and pluralism, right? Pero pagdating sa West Philippines, some people believe we need quote-unquote unity talaga kasi kakainin talaga tayo ng buhay. Because I mean, good luck going to Vietnam and arguing the case for China or Philippines, right? Good luck going to Malaysia arguing the case for Vietnam or China. Like, lahat ng mga bansa na yung pag makita mo, they're going towards more unity. Easier, of course, in a communist one-party regime. But even in Malaysia, even in Indonesia, nagiging sensitive itong issue ng West Philippine Sea disputes, North Natuna Sea, etc. Parang sa Pilipinas, I think the unfortunate thing is because may hidwa ng Aquino and Duterte administration, a whole range of other issues, medyo parang na-poison itong positioning natin sa West Philippine Sea. Because one thing na nasasad ako is, yun nga, nag-aaway tayo against each other when in fact, hindi naman si Aquino ang gumawa ng Scarborough Shoal. Hindi naman si Digong ang kumuha ng, or nagpa-ano ng Gemver, di ba? It's not Filipinos who did those things. It's another country which is doing those things. So the unity call of President Marcos Jr., I mean, I know many people made fun of it before during elections, but I think this is the time.
This is the time.
We do need a semblance of unity while preserving our national characteristic as a democracy. Right?
And I don't think it's a semblance of unity. I think the vast majority of the Filipino people are behind this. I've talked to so many people, and many people are pissed, many people are outraged and condemn what China is doing. In fact, I did my own social experiment in UP. No?
Right.
Because this was the time when we were adding EDCA sites. This was the time when we were revitalizing our relationship with the United States through the visit of the president to meet with President Biden, yung Mutual Defense Board and all of those meetings. So in my exam, I don't know if finals or midterm, in my class, in NCPAG, naglagay akong bonus question doon. Kasi my class was ethics and accountability, in public accountability. Correct. So I discussed what ethical governance is and how to be an ethical public servant. So sabi ko doon, knowing the ethical requirements of public service, is the Philippine government correct in revitalizing its relationships?
Interesting.
Ganun yung phrasing ko.
Interesting.
In revitalizing its relationships with the allies and traditional partners as a response to Chinese aggression in the West Philippine Sea.
Right.
I was surprised. All of them supported. And I told them, there is no correct or wrong answer. Kasi baka sabihin mo, syempre sir, 5 points yun eh. Alam nila, taga-NSC ka.
Wala akong sinabi dyan.
But UP students, they'll tell you, they will tell you your opinion to your face. No? I would think that they were honest when they said that yes, So, sabi ko, wow, wala man lang kumontra doon sa position. They understand that we are not in the best position to push for implementation of the 2016 arbitral ruling because we are not such a large country. We don't have the resources. And we have an MDP. So, why not utilize that relationship with the United States, no? Para we can carry a bigger stick when we do negotiations with China.
But without undermining our strategic autonomy and all, di ba? Yun
Of
ang
course.
mahalaga, yeah.
Of course, if you can see, Richard.
Kasi, sorry, I caught you there, Yusek. Kasi it keeps on coming back, no? Like whenever we push back against China or anything like that, sabihin ng mga American boys kayo or something like that.
Kaya,
What do you have to say about that nonsense?
That's una-una, the Americans are not part of the resupply mission to Ayungin. Kasi they are not. And I can tell that to you in a straight face. No? Atin yan, Philippine vessels niyan, all of that. No? What the Americans do is to fly a surveillance plane over our exclusive economic zone, which is allowed by international law.
Yeah.
Diba? There's freedom of overflight in those areas.
Yeah.
So, actually, hindi lang America ang nagmo-monitor.
Australia.
All of the biggest countries are monitoring.
Yeah.
So, if we're complaining about the US, we should complain about other countries. So, this is an entirely Philippine operation. And people who say na kaya nagsasucceed yung resupply na yan because of American support, there is no American support. There's none. No, we have our own drones. We have our own surveillance equipment, and we're utilizing it in our operations. It's not. So that's why some people are saying, we should have the Americans join us in the resupply. No, we're not doing that.
We're not.
We're not doing that.
We don't need that.
And we don't need that.
Need it,
no, because this is a problem between the between the Philippines and China. And it just so happens that the Americans are our mutual defense treaty partner.
Yeah, and they don't want China also to dominate those waters, right? And you're saying kasi ito rin problema ko may mga Amerikano kasi dyan masyadong excited. Parang chill lang kayo, we can do this on our own. If it's a building structures there. And by the way, Ayungin is not even a territory to be claimed. It's just a low tide elevation,
That's
right? Exactly. So
That's right.
China has nothing to claim there. That's one thing that we have to be very clear.
And we are the only country that has the authority to put structures there because it's
200 nautical miles exclusive economic zone, low tide elevation.
Siguro gusto ko lang ding idagdag doon sa unity ng Pilipino. And tama yung sinabi nyo nga, for the most part, majority of Filipinos support yung mga ginagawa natin and tutol doon sa mga lab. Pero I think that's where people like me and you, yung mga, lalo na yung mga vloggers or influencers doon sa opposition or doon sa ibang side, na maganda come together with the kahit yung mga vloggers from the Marcos side or kahit yung mga DDS, although yung iba dun sa DDS sila yung pero anyway. Pero yun nga, I mean for the most part maganda yung ginagawa din natin. We visited yung
Philippine Navy
and so magkasama pala kayo doon.
So, I think it starts there. At least.
And it circles back to our very first episode, right? Public service, as much as possible, let's separate this from partisan, ideological debates and all.
I think people have to cross the political aisle for this issue.
Yes. For this issue.
Doon sa domestic politics, mag-away-away tayo, walang problema. For this issue,
let's support our troops.
Let's support our troops. Diba? There's this book.
And Coast Guard. Hindi sila troops.
Diba? There's this book by Alex Lacson. Diba? 12 little things you can do for your country. One of the tenets there is speak well of your country.
Yes.
Diba? And this is where, this is a position. This is a position where
good point.
International law is very clear on our side. Very, very clear. And we have this this rising power in Asia, who has homogenic ambitions. Tama
Hegemonic.
Yes.
Baka madelikado tayo dyan. Where is he going? Hegemonic.
Alam ko mali eh. Hegemonic.
Baka ma-forum ka mamaya.
To quote the president.
The president.
So
hegemonic.
We need to push back.
Yeah.
And if government will push back against the hegemonic ambitions of this rising power in our part of the world, we need to support. We have to come together and cross the aisle.
Thank you so much. I think you were really the perfect person to talk about this because your own life of public service, together with your brother and family, is a testament to what we're trying to do here, no? We may have our different points of view. As you can see, may mga parts na medyo gigil ako. Gusto kong pumasok para sabi ko, fair tayo. My parts, I literally argued against myself.
What's wrong with you?
No, this is what we do. It's a real talk. Thank you so much, Yusek Malaya, for joining us. Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure to be here. And Mark, nice to meet you again.
And once again, thank you very much. And salamat, of course, to Mark for being a fantastic co-host, as always. And thank you guys for joining us for this very engaging episode. Hopefully, hindi masyadong napahamak yung guest namin dito. More of this. Abangan.
Abangan nyo po. And thank you very much, Cut Media. So, please subscribe, guys, sa mga YouTube and channel namin and sa Facebook. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much again sa Scott Media for helping us with the production and everything. This would not be possible without our great team here. Medyo social yung studio style namin dito.
Ganda.
So please subscribe and libre lang mag-subscribe yung mga fellow Ilocanos dyan. Libre lang kapsat. Alright? Thank you very much. God bless.
Real talk